Okay, in the previous class, we are discussing the following concepts, right? One of them is related to well ordering principle, right? First concept we discussed is well ordering principle. So what it says is that every non-empty subset of natural numbers has a least element, right? We can add a few more elements, finite number of elements to it. Then also well ordering principle will hold. So this is the first thing we discussed. Then division algorithm. So what is a division algorithm says? Yeah, someone of you. Yes.
Given in B belonging to Z, there exists uh, Q and R in Z such that
Yeah, A comma B belongs to Z and there is some condition, right?
So we can take order like A bigger than B.
No, not required actually.
A is not equal to 0.
One of them is not equal to 0. Let us say B not equal to 0. A and B are two integers and B not equal to 0. Then what is this is the hypothesis. What is the conclusion?
A can be written as
Uh,
BQ plus R for
uh,
unique Q and R in
yeah,
Z.
so there exist unique, we will write like this. There exist unique integers Q and R belongs to Z such that the first condition is, so A is equal to BQ plus R, first condition. And the second thing is that this there is a restriction on R
Less than B.
less than modulus of B.
B.
Right?
Yes.
So, yeah. So this is the division algorithm. So, and next then by using division algorithm, we define the concept called A divides B. So when you say that A divides B, so first of all, A should be not equal to 0. So we say that, so in this definition, this is there automatically. We say that A divides B if there exists an integer K belongs to Z such that B is equal to
A
A
times
into
A.
K, right? So this is called division, okay? In particular, what we are saying is that if I divide B by A, then B is equal to AQ plus R, but R should be equal to 0, right? Remainder is 0, okay? Then by later, so we define the concept of GCD, right? So GCD of two integers A and B. If A and B are two integers and both non-zero, at least one of them is non-zero, then I can define GCD. And how it is defined? It is we defined it as maximum of dA intersection dB. What is dA? Set of all divisors of A. dB set of all divisors of B. And these are two finite sets. One of them may be infinite if A or B is 0. This is infinite only when A is 0. If for non-zero number, dA is finite always. Okay. So one of them is finite. So then one of the sets is finite, their intersection is also finite. It is possible to find their maximum, right? That is the way we discussed this concept. So then beauty of this thing is that the Euclidean algorithm, right? What is that Euclidean algorithm gives? It evaluates the GCD of two given numbers without actually knowing the prime factorization of the numbers. So it is one of the oldest and best algorithm till now to find GCD of two integers. So how it do? So in the division algorithm, before this we proved that GCD of AB equal to GCD of A minus B, GCD of minus AB and so on. So it is sufficient to consider, if you want to write a program, it is sufficient to consider A greater than B greater than 0. If you find GCD of AB, then I can find GCD of BA minus AB minus A minus B, like that. All of them I can find out. Okay. So first we will find GCD for this, then we'll convert it into whatever the numbers asked. So then by division algorithm, so once we have two numbers A and B and one of them is greater not equal to 0, then I can write A is equal to BQ plus R by division algorithm. So Euclidean algorithm says that GCD of AB is same as GCD of BR, right? So by applying this repeatedly, I can find GCD very easily. That is called divisional Euclidean algorithm, right? Yeah, good. And actually, in fact, okay, so that is the thing. And then later we define the concept called, so we defined main theorem that is called Biget's identity. So some of you can tell that. Yes, any one of you? What is Biget's identity? Yeah, Aditi, yeah, go ahead. What is Biget's identity? If A and B are two integers, okay, and
Sir, then
A square plus B square is not equal to 0, or you can also write A comma B added pair not equal to 0 comma 0. उसका meaning है at least one of them is non-zero.
Then we can write AX plus BY.
GCD of AB, okay.
Is it
For example, GCD of AB is equal to D.
D? Then we can write AX plus BY is equal to D.
So there exist X and Y
Integers. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
such that D is equal to AX plus BY. So this is called Biget's identity. Biget's identity says that GCD of GCD of two integers can be expressed as a integer linear combination of those numbers only, right? Yeah. So
These are not unique numbers, right?
here uniqueness is not required. I can write several ways. Okay. Yeah. So that is a good question. So that's why I'm not anywhere written uniqueness here. For example, if I take 3 comma 5 is equal to 1, right? 3 comma 5 GCD is 1. Now, so 1 can be expressed as, so you can find X and Y more than one way. Such that 3x plus 5y equal to 1. Can you give me, one of you give me fast? What are X?
Sir, x equals to minus 8 and y equals to 5.
X equal to minus 8. So when X equal to minus 8, 3 into minus 8, it is 24, minus 24, and 5, y is equal to 5, 25. 25 minus 24, it is 1. So another pair.
2 and 1. X is equal
2 and 1.
minus 1.
2 and 1 will work. And now you know 10 and 9 also. So there are many ways to write 1 as a integer linear combination of 3 and 5. So actually that is equivalent to you are solving this Diophantine equation. Isn't it, understand? So it is like, it is same as in the linear algebra also. So you are expressing one vector as a linear combination of other. Okay, it is in the expressing. So now like 3 and 5 like a basis, not like exactly like that. I'm expressing one as a linear, but there it is, they are linearly independent. Then there exist unique vectors. Okay, subjects are different, but ideas are almost the same. Okay, that is what I want to say. Yeah. Okay, good. So this is what we discussed, Biget's identity. So Biget's identity is clear. Then what we discussed in as a concept next. Anyone?
So equivalence relation.
So actually then we defined the congruences. So A is congruent to B mod N. N is a positive integer. So this is the another concept, next concept, right? So N is, of course, in between we have prime numbers and composite numbers. So I went very fast here. So you know prime numbers, composite numbers. So that's why I'm not discussed much here. But only main thing we need is that, so there is a main theorem that is called fundamental theorem of arithmetic. What is it? It says every positive integer greater than 1 can be written as product of primes uniquely up to order. Okay, this is interesting result. This is called existential result. Very interesting. You need to just try to understand that. Existential result is that any given number, if I give some number n, then it is possible to find, it is saying that there exists some finite number of prime numbers such that n is equal to product of those primes. So it is existence only. But how do you, when I give n, then actually finding is very difficult. Okay, it is not that easy. So Fundamental theorem of arithmetic is existence theorem. Every number greater than 1 can be written as product of primes uniquely. Okay. 1 you cannot write, right? Every natural number greater than 1 can be written as product of primes uniquely. So there exist primes P1, finite number of primes. So like that. So some pk power ak, right? So product, okay. It is existence theorem. But naturally, if you want to write a program and implement it, then it is not that easy. Okay. So that is what I am telling to Rohan. So Rohan will try that. What is he will try? So given a natural number n, so what are the factorization methods we have? Okay. So first one is that Fermat tried. Okay. Fermat factorization method. One method is there. Then later people improved it a bit. His idea only. So later his idea only people are trying to improve. So sorry. Then later, so there is a very advanced methods came. Okay, like a quadratic sieve method, quadratic sieve methods. Okay, sieve methods came. Even in between we have elliptic curves also used. Elliptic curves used in the prime factorization of n. Prime factorization of n. Factorization of n. So elliptic curve methods and then quadratic sieve method. Now presently best algorithm is general sieve method. General sieve method. So you no need to go, Rohan, no need to do all these things. So it is a very big area. So factorization of the number. Okay. So you just give the tip of that, and so those who are interested, they will go later. Okay. So I'll try to give the material to Rohan as much as possible, and he will also refer. So topic is this much. Okay. Main topic is for him is that given a natural number, so find the factorization. So first he will start with what is Fermat factorization method. So this can be available in, for example, elementary number theory by Burton. Any book you take elementary number theory, then you can find out, right? Then afterwards, improvement on these things. What are those? So in particular, so who is the person? Quadratic sieve method. So to get more material on this, so there is a person called Pomerance, and he is the person given this quadratic sieve method. So then it is sieve methods are introduced, and many people are working now. Now in the number theory, sieve methods is sieve theory is a one big area now. So people are using that given number is a transcendental number or not. Many it becomes a very big area. Okay. So now if you go to visit his website, okay, so he himself given many talks on this. Okay, so his slides and his articles are available. Okay, so that way one can figure out. Okay, so that is related to that. Then we introduced the concept like congruences. A is congruent to B mod n, where n is some natural number, right? So this when it happens, when we say that A is congruent to B mod n,
When n divides the difference.
when n divides B minus A, and we proved that it is an equivalence relation, and it divides the set of integers into equivalence classes. That is exactly the division algorithm also, right? So division algorithm is dividing the integers into equivalence classes. That is exactly this, right? Okay. So then we introduced the concept called main theorem in this. What is the main theorem we proved? We stated here. Anyone? We end with that theorem.
Fermat's little theorem.
Fermat's little theorem. Okay. What is the Fermat's little theorem says?
For all integers A.
No, not for all integers A.
Uh,
For a prime P not dividing
Actually,
integer P.
any integer it will work, but while you are writing let A belongs to Z, you take a particular given A. Okay. What you are telling is correct, but it is true for all integers satisfying some condition, but while stating you will not state for all of them. Let A belongs to an integer. Yeah. For this A, I am now telling the result. Please go ahead. and P be a prime number.
P be a prime number such and P does not divide
Yeah.
A,
Yeah.
then A raised to P minus 1 is congruent to
A comma P
1.
GCD is 1, or this is also equivalent to P divides A in this particular case. Okay.
It does not divide.
Yeah. See, 4 also does not divide 6, but 4 comma 6 GCD is not 1. Okay. But primes that is happening. Okay.
Oh,
These
yeah.
two are equivalent. Okay.
Hmm.
So P does not divide A, then what is happening? A power
P
P
minus
minus
1
1 is congruent to
to 1 mod
A.
P.
Yeah. Right?
1 mod P.
1 mod P. Okay. Good. This is 1 mod P. Yeah. So then as a corollary to this, what is that we done?
We did
So A power P is congruent to
A
A
mod P.
mod
This is
P.
true for every integer. There is no restriction on A, right? So here for more application of this, I will write here for every A belongs to Z. That's what your goal also want to tell. For every integer, A power P is congruent to A mod P. But while proving it, we'll take one integer at a time and we'll prove. Okay. Okay. So let us see. Some of you can you prove it? Actually, I'm not giving the proofs last time, but let us have some look. Any one of you can give proof. So Fermat's little theorem, A power P is congruent to 1 mod P. Okay, this is what I want to prove. What is the condition given? A comma P GCD is 1 or P does not divide A. So yeah, so any one of you can give the proof of this. How to prove this?
We have the equivalence. We should first establish that the equivalence class of 1 to P minus 1 is the same as like if you multiply it by some number A. And then you should
Okay, okay. Yeah, you are making
then
sense. Yeah.
the set of equivalence classes of 1 to P minus 1 is the same as the set of like A into
Right.
and then you multiply because
Okay. Yeah. Correct, Rohan. Yeah. So what is Rohan is telling, I will just write down here. So when you write down sometimes it. So actually equivalence classes, okay, as he telling that is very important. So we will write this ZP. Actually ZP is Z by PZ, okay. This is the thing, okay. But in the literature, for example, in commutative algebra, there is a course, this ZP is different there, okay. So we should be careful. So this is for other notation, but in our course, ZP is nothing but Z by PZ. PZ is an ideal or abelian subgroup, additive subgroup of Z, the quotienting. So since Z is abelian group with respect to addition, otherwise Z is PZ is an ideal. So Z by PZ. So it is as a ring or a. So but we are now. So we are just looking that as a ring, as a subgroup, as a group. ZP is a set of integers modulo P. Okay. So here the elements are equivalence classes, right? 0. So equivalence classes like this. So I'll put boxes. Okay. So up to P minus 1, right? So what is equivalence class 0? All the numbers which leaves remainder 0 when I divided by P. So these are sets. Okay. These are equivalence classes which partitioning the Z, right? So, but while evaluating, we'll just not write these boxes and all. Okay, it's understood that we are in the modulo PZ. So, what Rohan is telling is that I'll take 1, 2, 3 up to P minus 1. These are the numbers, right? Residue classes. Then what? So, what is given in the problem? So, we given that A is given. A comma P GCD is 1. This is given, right? So what Rohan is telling that I will multiply this A into 1 means equivalence class again, okay. A into 2, it is A is multiplied to each and every element of the equivalence class. A into 2 like that, A into P minus 1, right? So this much only. If you understand, so We are taking all of these and we are multiplying. What is that we need to show? A power p minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod p. So this is our goal. Okay. So it is only relation between a and b. So in between, we are just taking the numbers 1 to p minus 1. Okay. So that a is given, I have to use somewhere this a. So I will multiply all of them. So proof is very simple. Just 2 steps you need to understand. First, you need to show that none of these are divisible by p. Okay. Question 1. None of them are divisible by p. Second step is, so that main proof will come later. So how do you show that none of these are divisible by p? Okay. So suppose that 2 of them are divisible by p. So ai is equal to aj, where I is so less than j, let us assume, right? Okay. Or otherwise, if a is congruent to ai is congruent to aj mod p, okay, they will give the same remainder if you assume like that. Okay. So then I'll show I equal to j. This another way. Okay. Anything is okay. If this is the happening, so by definition, p divides ai minus aj, right? That means p divides a times I minus j, right? What next?
So
Does
P
not
does not.
divide.
P does not divide a, or p comma a GCD1, then
P divides I minus.
p divides I minus j. How? Which
So
result?
because, sir, because it's a prime.
Not that way. We are actually using Euclid's lemma. Prime is also fine, but this is better. Okay. So that you will use to understand. You can apply at different places. I'm not denying your whatever you are saying, but it is always better that. So better to apply that. If a comma b GCD1, a divides bc. Okay, a comma b GCD1, a divides bc, then a divides c. Okay. So that is the thing we are using. Okay. So again, do not assume this. Prove it. How to prove this one? See, if you ask, it is very easy. Okay, you no need to remember anything and you will become very confident. Okay, so let us prove this. A comma b GCD1, a divides bc. I want to show a divides c. How do you prove? So do not panic.
So a divides.
Yeah, 1 minute. Let me tell other people also. See, do not panic. What is given? A comma b GCD1. What is given? A divides bc. What is that we need to show? A divides c we need to show. This is our claim. Okay. So two things are given. A comma b GCD1. Okay. So what we can do here? Think about. A divides bc. So just whatever given, just write down. Okay. So yeah, now go ahead. A comma b GCD1. What we can do?
We can write one as integer linear combination of A
Yes,
and B.
yes, Pranita. Thanks. See, you know that by Bezoart's lemma, Bezoart's identity. So whenever GCD of A comma B equal to 1, there exists x comma y such that 1 is equal to ax plus by. Nothing. I'm just writing whatever given to me. Okay. Now A divides BC. You know that there exists an integer k such that BC is equal to A into k. Okay. Now I have these things with me. Now again come back. What is that I want to show? A divides C. What is its meaning? I want to show that C is equal to A into something. I want to bring. How can I bring? Now how can I utilize my information? Yeah. So do not Rohan, do not Aditi, do not Pranita. Somebody else now? I'll repeat. I am here. A comma B GCD1. A divides BC. I want to show A divides C. Okay. So just I wrote down A comma B GCD1. I wrote Bezoart's identity, applied Bezoart's identity. A divides BC, then just I applied the definition BC equal to A into K. There exists a K like that. My claim is to show C is equal to A into this one. Till now, I just wrote what is that we need to prove. Yeah, Sachin, go ahead.
So for in 1 equals to ax plus by, so we can multiply by c.
Yeah.
So we will have c
is equal to
acx
plus
bcy. Now we can replace bc by ak. and then we can take A common.
Yeah, okay, okay, na. So you see, whatever given, if you write down properly, then you will get the result. What is that we need to show? So entire crux is depends upon, see, proof is very simple. Only thing is that you are writing what is given very systematically. Then proof follows. And you become confident. You will not remember the proof. At any point of time, okay, please give me time. And you will prove it. Okay, good. So this is done. Now come to this. Okay, now we are proving the Fermat's little theorem. So actually FLT, in literature FLT is Fermat's last theorem, but in our, we are not using Fermat's last theorem. So I am using FLT for Fermat's little theorem. What is Fermat's little theorem says? A is an integer, P is a prime number, and A comma P GCD1, that is the hypothesis. What is the conclusion? A power P minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod P. How the proof? So Rohan told that let us start with 1, 2, 3 up to P minus 1. And since A comma P GCD1, multiply A to each of them, right? Then first step is that we need to show that no two of them are congruent to modulo P. That means if I take any two of them, their difference is not divisible by P. So that we wrote. Okay, suppose it happening, then my claim is that I equal to J. So for that, P divides A minus AJ, P divides A times I minus J, P comma A GCD1. Now by Euclid's lemma, P comma A GCD1, P divides BC, then P divides C. So P divides I minus J. Now what is the problem? So both I and J are less than P. So I minus J, so one of them is greater than the other, right? Or this is possible only when I equal to J. So this simply that. If they are not equal, it is not possible. Okay. So I has to be equal to J only. So no number divides the number smaller than that. Okay. If needed, I can interchange which one is positive or you are not comfortable with the negative thing. Okay. That is not a big problem. So proof is very simple. So first we proved that. Later what is that Rohan told? Multiply all of them, right? If this is so if I multiply all of them, A into 1, A into 2 and so on, A into P minus 1, right? So how do you prove? Next part. Any one of you? So first we proved that no two of them are congruent to modulo P. Now we have these numbers. Okay. So Rohan told that multiply all of them. I stopped him to complete. Any one of you now? So I'll write in a, yes. Okay, here I'll write. Now we are here, A into 1, A into 2 and so on, A into P minus 1. So no two of them are relatively, no two of them are congruent. That we proved. Next. Somehow I had to get A power P minus 1. Further T is multiplying.
So we'll get
Yeah.
A to power P minus 1 into P minus 1 factorial.
Okay.
What?
But that is okay. But how do you get this something like this? Congruence and all I need to get, right?
Sir, from that relation, like A and P are relatively prime, we can write 1 equals to, like, there exist x and y and z such that 1 equals to ax plus py and
Okay.
Sir, we can write like A into P into A into 1 into A into 2 till A into P minus 1 is equal to P minus 1 factorial mod P.
Yes. How do you write that?
Sir, because A.
Okay. See.
These are distinct congruence classes. You have P minus 1 distinct congruence classes. So each one has to be like congruent to one of the
right.
like.
Okay. Okay. Good. See. So I'll restate things so that it will be convenient. Okay. So let us go systematically one more time. Okay. So I'll go for new pace. Okay. So Fermat's little theorem. So a power p minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod p. I want to show hypothesis, you know. So there are two steps. So now Aditi and Rohan is telling one more step. What is the step they are telling is that, so we have this a into 1 comma a into 2 and so on, a into p minus 1, right? First step they are telling is that, so now I am calling that as first step. First they are asking us to prove that none of them are actually divisible by p. This is not divisible by p, this is not divisible by p. So none of them are not divisible by p. How do you prove it? What is that they are saying is that a into I is not congruent to 0 mod p. So prove by contradiction. Suppose one of them is congruent to 0 mod p. What is the meaning? Again, p divides ai. But I is lies in between 0 to p minus 1. A is anyhow GCD of a comma p1. So now p divides I will get. This is again a contradiction. So first thing Rohan or Aditi telling is that first check this. First thing is that none of them are divisible by p. That means if I divide these by p, what is that happens? None of them will give remainder
0.
0. Okay, yeah. So none of them will give
So
remainder 0, right? And that is the first thing. And second step, what we done? In the first step, what we done is that these are p minus 1 numbers. None of them are giving remainder 0. That is the first step we done. In the second step, what we done? No
that
two of
if
them are
you
congruent
divide,
modulo p means what? Yeah, please go ahead, please. Yeah, sorry.
so none, they are not congruent to each other in the set.
That means
Uh,
they are giving.
So they have to be. So if I divide these numbers by p, they have to be congruent to one of the 1, 2, so on up to p minus 1.
That is okay, but are they going to be distinct?
Yes, they are distinct. That we proved.
That is exactly proved. That is what, okay. No two of them are congruent means, so a into 1 gives some remainder, a into 2 give remainder, a into p minus 1 if I divide by p, some give some remainder, but they are all giving different remainders. If they give same remainder, their difference is divisible by p, right? So that is the step. Okay, once they are giving different remainders, what is happening? A into 1, a into 2, and so on, a into p minus 1. So they are congruent to 1 into 2 into up to p minus 1. Okay, so a minus 1 is giving remainder one of these. I do not know which one exactly. It depends upon a. So a into 2 giving one remainder, but it is different remainder. So these numbers are giving different reminders, but we know that what are all the reminders other than 0. These are the only. So this is what. So this is congruent to modulo p. Now proof is done, right? Now this is a how many times? So p minus 1 times a power p minus 1 is into p minus 1 factorial is congruent to, so p minus 1 factorial mod p, right? Next what? So now this means that p divides a power p minus 1 minus 1 into p minus 1 factorial, right? Next what? P does not divide p minus 1 factorial. So GCD of p comma p minus 1 factorial is 1. So again by Euclid's lemma, p has to divide a power p minus 1 minus 1. So that is a power p minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod p by definition of the congruence. Okay. So I made it little complicated. So now just go through. Very simple. Proof is very simple. Okay. So first you take the numbers 1, 2 up to p minus 1, multiply with a. So just to prove these two things, that is the main thing you need to understand. First thing is that, so none of them will give remainder 0. First step. Second step, no two of them will give the same remainder. Bus. These are the two steps, multiply and equate over. Any questions? Good. Okay. So let us, so are you able to see the slides? No.
Yes, sir. Sir, excuse me, sir. So actually, I have like, so can
Huh.
you please explain once again? So
Yeah.
after this, so like,
Huh.
so what, like, so when we write this a into 1
Hmm.
into a into 2, so on up to a into p minus 1, congruent to 1 into 2 into
Hmm.
p minus 1 mod p.
Hmm.
So the argument which we are giving here is that
Hmm.
these will be one of the remainders, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay, okay.
See,
Yes,
see, a into 1, I divided by p. P divides, so when I, by division algorithm, so a into 1 is, so a into 1 will give some remainder, right? That remainder I do not know, but I know that it is not 0. Okay. So that remainder say R1. So now a into 2, it will give other remainder R2, but all of them are distinct. But you know that what are all the remainders when I divided by p? 0, 1 up to p minus 1.
p minus 1. Yes.
But 0 I am removing, and so now these are all of them are getting, but I do not know which order. So, but I will multiply them. So I am multiplying one side these things, and I'll these are congruent to these. I will multiplying others. So again, we are using some relation of the congruence. A is congruent to B mod P. So maybe this is maybe creating problem. A is congruent to C mod P. Then AC is congruent to BD mod P. So these I'm using these things without actually discussing, right? Yeah. Yeah. Indirectly, I'm using.
It's clear.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions further? Any questions? Okay. So I hope you are able to see the slides.
Yes.
Yeah. So today, so we will try to look at. So today my goal is 4 things, right? First thing is that Chinese remainder theorem. Second concept is related to Euler's theorem. It is an extension of Fermat's-Little theorem. Third one is that primitive roots. Fourth one is quadratic residues. I'll go back one after the another. So these are my ideas. So Chinese remainder theorem, Euler's theorem, primitive roots, quadratic residues. So you are familiar with these things, but so let me go. So what is the Chinese remainder theorem? But before that, we need to know that the equation of the form Ax is congruent to B mod M is called a linear congruence. And by a solution to such an equation, we mean that there exists an x naught such that Ax naught is congruent to B mod N, right? So finding all integers satisfying Ax is congruent to B mod N is identical. So what do you mean by Ax is congruent to B mod N? N divides Ax minus B. N divides Ax minus B means what? There exists some y such that Ax minus B equal to Ny. That is same as solving this equation, right? So Ax is congruent to B mod N is identical with obtaining all the solutions of the linear Diophantine equation. Okay. So here you see that there is only one variable, but now suddenly one more variable come, but equal to become here. Okay. So that is the conversion from congruence to equation. So one variable become extra. Okay. So be careful that so 3x equal to 3x congruent to 9 mod 12. So they have two, so these both are the solutions. You can check, is x equal to 3 satisfying this or not? So when I put x equal to 3, 9 is congruent to 9 mod 12. That is true, right? 12 divides 9 minus 9. When x equal to minus 9, right? So x equal to minus 9, it is minus 36. So 12 divides minus 8. That is also solution. But if you look at 3 is congruent to minus 9 modulo 12. So these are not called different solutions. Okay. As such, the numbers are different, but as a congruent size, these are same. Okay. So like it is like I am wearing different spectacles, right? So modulo 12 spectacle if I wear, So I'm able to see that 3 and minus 9 are same. Okay, it is like that.
Or if x naught is a solution, then equivalence class of x naught will automatically be a solution. We can
Yes,
see that
yes.
through the congruence.
Right, exactly. Yes. Okay, so in short, what we refer the number of solutions of Ax equal to b mod n, we mean that the number of incongruent integers that satisfy the required congruence. Incongruent means, so x naught, y naught are two solutions, then x naught does not congruent to y naught modulo that n. Okay, we are number of solutions means those things only we need to see. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that related to the Diophantine equation, we have another thing. So linear congruency x equal to b mod n has solution if and only if d divides b, that is the first condition, when it has a solution. Now if d divides b, then it has exactly d mutually incongruent solutions modulo n. Okay, so is it okay? You want explanation, more explanation to this? Proof is easy. So you understand now what do you mean by incongruent solutions? Okay, otherwise I will may try to give examples later. Okay, okay. If in particular, if GCD of a comma n equal to 1, then ax equal to b has a unique solution. Why it has unique solution? You are not only telling that it has a solution, we are telling unique solution. Why? Why it has a solution first? So if you look at above theorem that a comma b GCD, a comma n GCD d has to divide b. Now a comma n GCD is 1 given. So 1 anyhow divides b. So there is no problem with the solution. But how many solutions are there? D in mutually incongruent solutions. But now d equal to 1 here. So can somebody give me the solution to this? I do not told what is A, what is B, what is N, but even then you can give.
N by D, comma.
But there is no concept.
Okay, sorry. N and M. N and A. N.
No, so if you substitute N, how it is actually N divides AN, right? N divides AN. So so that is 0 actually, right? Under modulo N. 0 congruent to B modulo N. That is not true.
Yeah, sorry, sir. Just a
No,
moment.
that's okay. That's okay. Okay, if I'm fast, okay, go slow. I'm telling you that A comma N GCD1, then AX equal to B mod N has a unique solution modulo N. See, what I want to say is that, so if you look at x is congruent to 1 mod 2, x is congruent to 1 mod 2, what is the solution to that? X is congruent to 1 mod 2.
1.
1 is one solution, right? And up to 2 modulo 2, that is a unique solution. But how many solutions are there? In general, if I remove modulo n, x is congruent to 1 modulo 2, every odd prime will satisfy, right? Every odd number satisfy that. So as such, x is congruent to 1 modulo 2 has infinite number of solutions, but up to modulo 2 it has unique solution, right? Yeah, only one. So like that, can you somebody give me the solution to this? See, what is that? Okay, so let us write one more time. What is given? A comma n GCD1, right? And we are asking that AX is congruent to B mod n. I am not worried about what is B. Whatever may be the B. Once I have A comma n GCD1, this has a unique solution up to modulo n. So that is the question. Yeah, what is the solution? That is the question, right? Okay, so again, do not panic. So this is the thing. So what is given to us? Come to that
I
first.
think GCD of B upon GCD of A and B.
Yeah, okay. So what is that x equal to? Yeah,
I think B upon GCD of A and B. Like
no.
if you solve a linear Diophantine equation, then
For some integer.
No. Okay. So first of all, go slowly. So look at this. First of all, can you tell me, is it true that this also has a solution? I'm telling any B, na? Okay, so sometime we'll keep this aside. A comma n GCD1, I'm telling that Ax equal to 1 mod n has a solution. What is the solution?
A inverse, like some multiplicative inverse or something.
Multiplicative inverse. What is the multiplicative inverse? Actually, exactly, right? What actually we are saying is that A has a multiplicative inverse modulo n. This meaning, okay, see, Pragati, can you give me the answer? What is that? Now I want to find x. What is that x? That is a goal. So you are telling that is multiplicative inverse. That is, we denoted it as A inverse. But what is A inverse? How can I find it? That is a question mark. So now, okay, so if you assume that inverse exists, then that is A inverse. Now, can you tell me the solution to this problem now? Assume we proved it.
A inverse into
B.
X equal to what? A inverse into?
A inverse B.
A inverse B, right? Yeah, good. So A inverse B satisfies this, right? So now this problem now boils down to finding A inverse. Okay, so you see the beauty. So I want to solve this problem, but now this problem is boils down to solving this problem. Okay, yeah, okay. Now how do you solve this problem? If you find A inverse, so whenever I have A comma n GCD1, you are claiming that inverse exists under modulo n. That means this congruence has a solution, right?
So,
Exactly.
sir, we can write that congruence as a linear Differential equation.
How? Yeah.
So Ax minus 1 will be equal to some multiple of n. So let's say y. So Ax minus.
Okay. No, that is okay. So I want to prove that you take it and you want to prove that way, right? You are now going that
is 1.
Yeah, Shruti. Yeah.
You can see that there exists x and y such that 1 is equal to ax plus ny.
Okay.
And that is your, the a into x is your x naught is your solution.
Yeah.
Because
okay. Yeah. Okay, Shruti. See, so sorry, Aditi, I stopped. So Aditi, you go ahead now.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing. So
same thing, but actually you need to come this way. Yeah, Aditi, you are very correct. So you are trying to attack this, but see,
okay, sir. So GCD of A and n is equal to 1. So we can write the GCD in form of a linear combination.
Correct.
Which you have already written.
Then so ny is equal to ax minus 1. That means that n divides ax minus 1. That means so n is so ax minus 1 is congruent to. So what is the inverse now in this entire scenario?
that x that you got from
that x which we got from the this Bezo's identity. So sorry, there is a confusion here, this x and this x. Okay, so just to go through carefully. This is very important. That's why I'm giving a lot of time here. See, whenever you have, so I told yesterday that Bezo's identity I will use very frequently. Do not forget that. Okay, so see, when you use Caesar cipher or any other cipher, so this is very important. You will take A comma 26 GCD is 1. There are 26 letters in the alphabet. So you should be careful about that. So only which years I had, in particular, there is a concept called shift cipher or FN ciphers. Okay. So when in that place, I need this thing. So, okay, A comma N GCD1, by Bezoart's identity, there exists some x1 comma y1 belongs to Z such that ax1 plus ny1 is equal to 1, right? That means that ax1 minus 1 is equal to ny1. That means that ax1 is congruent to 1 mod n, right? These are all same, right? N divides ax1 minus 1, ax1 is congruent to 1 mod n. So this x1 is the inverse of A. So Bezoart's identity is helping you to find the inverse. Okay. So why we need to know all these things? See, GCD can be evaluated by using Euclid's lemma. Okay. And extended Euclidean algorithm will help you. You can extend Euclidean algorithm. So go backwards. You can find these x and y also. Okay. What I want to say. So A and B are two integers were given. So you want to, so extended Euclidean algorithm will give two things, not only just GCD. Euclidean algorithm will give GCD. Extended Euclidean algorithm will give that x and y also. It solves Bezoart's identity also. So there exists x and y such that d is equal to x plus. So it give both d as well as x comma y. Okay. Extended Euclidean algorithm is also polynomial time algorithm only, going backwards. So we are beautiful actually. Without actually prime factorization, if I give two integers, okay, yeah, so one of them is non-zero, then extended Euclidean algorithm will provide me the GCD and also that x and y such that d is equal to ax plus by. Okay, both are coming very freely, almost very nicely polynomial time algorithm, simple, at most n square. So I'll get it, both of them. So this you should not forget. Okay, so because while you're going to cryptography, so which are easy problems, which are hard problems, we need to know. Okay, finding GCD is easy. Okay, free, like, and finding this x and y is free. Okay, so that's why I'm giving a lot of importance and time here. Okay, fine. So any questions? Okay. So now it is clear that this AX is B mod n has unique solution modulo n. And so we observed that A comma and GCD1, so the study of linear congruence AX equal to B mod n reduces to finding just A inverse modulo n only, because X naught is equal to AB inverse modulo n is a solution, right? So this solution is equivalent to finding A inverse actually, once you have A comma and GCD1. Okay, good. Okay, so now go to the Chinese remainder theorem. Okay. Yeah, so we have that n1, n2, nr be positive integers such that ni comma nj GCD1. Okay, for we are going slow, very slow actually. Yeah. Okay. So first, what is Chinese remainder theorem says? N1, N2 up to Nr are positive integers. What is extra condition? Ni comma Nj, if I take any two of them, their GCD is 1. Okay, they are relatively prime. Any two of them are relatively prime. That means mutually they are relatively prime. Okay, that is the hypothesis. And other hypothesis, then the linear system of congruences, X is congruent to A1 mod N1, X is congruent to A2 mod N2, and so on, X is congruent to AR mod NR, has a simultaneous solution. Okay. What about this A1, A2, AR? There is no restriction. Okay. So you are allowed to take any A1, A2, AR. Okay. So try to understand. So you take N and R positive integers, they are relatively prime, mutually relatively prime. Then A1, A2, AR, you take any integers, whatever you like, take. Okay. Then you form these equations. R congruence equations. Okay, then all of them, it is possible to find an x satisfying all of them simultaneously, solving system of equations like system of congruences now. Okay, not only that one, which is a unique modulo, the solution is unique modulo the product of the integers n1, n2 up to nr. Is the statement clear? What is the hypothesis? Please, yeah. Yes.
Just saying yes.
Okay, thanks, Rohan. So try to understand that what is again given here again one more time. Okay. So I am annotating. Are you able to see it or not? So are you able to see them?
Yeah, sir.
Okay, good. So let us. Okay, so n1, n2, and up to nr. These are all distinct. These are all prime integers, and they are relatively prime. That is first point. Second point is that mutually they are relatively prime. First thing. Now you choose a1, a2, and so on, ar, whatever you like, whatever, any integers you take. Then this x congruent a1 mod n1, x congruent a2 mod n2. So this system of n r congruent, this has always a solution. Not only that one, that solution is unique modulo the product n1 into nr. So this is what Chinese remainder theorem is. Okay. So it has a lot of applications and other things. So yeah. So how to prove it? So do you see something like this in the linear transformations, in the linear algebra? What is that? I want to say that so V and W are two finite dimensional vector spaces. Okay. So V and W are two finite dimensional vector spaces. Now I take a, so let us say that dimension is n. Okay. Now I take some basis here. Now my basis is, let us say V1, V2, and so on Vn. Okay. So Vn is the V1, V2, Vn is a basis for V. Okay. Now I take any n vectors in W, any n vectors you like. W1, they may be repeated. W2 and so on, Wn. Okay. So can somebody complete now? I given the hint. So that is related to linear transformations.
So we can write Wi as combination of basis of V from V.
No, be careful. So see what is given again. I'll repeat slowly. Go one by one. Okay. So what is that I'm saying is that I given you.
So there exists a unique linear transformation that maps T1, Ty, Tvi to Wi.
Very good. See, that is a beauty. So it is looking as completely different problem, but a very beautiful thing. So that is the way you need to understand the things. Okay. So V1, V2, Vn is a basis. Like here, N1, N2, Nr are mutually relatively prime numbers. Okay. Here V1, V2, Vn is a basis. I'm not choose any n vectors here. Okay. And here A1, A2, AR, whatever the numbers you like, you choose. There is no restriction. Here W1, W2, Wn are any n vectors in W. Okay. They may be repeated. All of them are zero vectors. So no need to worry. But what is that theorem says? So there exists a unique linear transformation T which maps VI to WI. Okay. Yeah. So it is completely different area, but just I want to, so I felt happy. So I want to just share that part to you. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. So that is thing, and I will connect now further. Okay. So what is that? How do you prove it? So just I'm giving some hint. So this M is the product of all these numbers, N1 into N2 into Nr. Okay. So I am constructing some numbers. What is capital Ni? Ni is equal to M by Ni. Okay. So what is N1? Somebody? Now today I'm not asking raise hand and else because sorry, because I am already slow. Yeah. Somebody can tell me what is N1?
So it will be N2, N3, and so on till NR.
Okay, good. So N2, small, capital N2.
So small N1, N3 till NR.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So do you see somewhere this type of thing come in the interpolation?
yes, sir.
So can you tell me, Sachin, where it comes interpolation pay?
Sir, when we uh, uh, um, sir, like the point at which we are finding interpolation, that doesn't come in the uh, that
Right.
expression.
Lagrange method. Right?
Lagrange interpolation technique. In the Lagrange interpolation,
Yes.
so it is given that x1, x2, xn and whose values y1, y2, yn. Okay. So you are going to form some, so that function you find f of x equal to x minus x1 like that, right? You will remove one of them exactly. That is exactly this one. So somebody wrote an article. So Chinese remainder theorem and Lagrange's theorem. So just I want to tell you that, so different types, you think that they are different, but the idea is same. Okay. So now, so that is what actually, so N1 is N2 into N3 up to NR, N2 is equal to N1, N3 and so on. NR is equal to N this part. So you are clear with. Now, what is the, can you say somebody, someone, can you tell that what is the relation between small N1 and capital N1? Other than Rohan?
They are relatively
Prime. Yeah, I
like,
want to say other than Aditi also, but you told already. Okay. Yeah.
sorry,
So
sir.
small n1 comma capital N1 GCD1, right? Because these are all relatively prime. So small n1 comma capital N1 GCD is also 1, right? What happens if you have one GCD1? Capital N1 and small n1 GCD1, then what is that we can have?
So we can use Bezos identity.
Bezos identity. See, whenever Bezos identity is very handy. So there, what happens? Bezos identity gives what? Capital N1 has a inverse
Yes, sir.
modulo small n1. So yes, just keep things. So they may be used for us in future. Okay. So then, so that is what GCD of nk comma small nk equal to 1. Hence for each k, there exists xk such that nk xk equal to congruent to 1 mod nk. Right. So this much we have. I'm not doing anything. Just whatever I given in the hypothesis, just I'm writing and collecting with my previous results. Right. Okay, now I am farming whatever I want. Okay, this is some magic here suddenly. So whatever I want to get, I just getting from here. So A1, A2, AN are given in the hypothesis, right? It is, they are also given in the hypothesis. Okay, in the hypothesis, I have N1 into NR, small N1 into NR and A1, A2, AR. My goal is to find a solution to all the congruences, right? So I am now formed X bar is equal to this A1, this N1, this X1. Okay, I multiplied, I added. Okay, so like that I am done. Okay. So now we can check that this is a solution. Why? Somebody can help? Okay, take time actually. So take few seconds, then you respond. It is because other people also will understand.
So because GCD is 1, so
No,
we
no,
can
what
say
is that we want to show actually, right? So we want to show that these congruences, this X bar satisfies all of them. X bar satisfies all of them, we need to show. In the place of X, now I have put X bar, then Y will get A1 mod N1. That you need to prove it. What is that I am asking? I am explaining you. Yeah, now, yeah, please go ahead now. X bar, you know, I'll write here. So I'll write here. So X bar is, so can somebody help me? X bar is what?
Capital N,
N1, capital N1, small
X.
a1 and x1. What is this x1?
It's the inverse.
Inverse of capital N1 modulo small
Modulo
n1.
small
Yeah.
n1.
So that is just, I just farming that. Okay. So N2, A2, X2. So N2 is what? So just product of all these, but removing N2, small n2, right? A2 is what? That is given in the problem. What is X2? X2 is the multiplicative inverse of N2 mod N2. Okay. So this is the thing I took, and I am now claiming that this entire sum will work. Okay. First, I am proving existence. There is a solution which satisfies all of these equations. Yeah. Yes. Now go ahead. Why this satisfies the first congruence?
So if you divide x bar by n1, then each of the other terms, n2 to nr, will have n1. So it becomes congruent to 0 mod n1,
Right.
except for the first one.
First one.
And in the first one, you already have n1 x1 congruent to 1 mod n1, which tells you x bar is congruent to a1 mod n1.
Right. Similarly, other things. Very simple. Proof is, see, you proved actually. Very nicely you proved. Nothing actually. Right. So whatever given, you are just using them and we are proving. Right. And okay. So I hope all of you are clear. So actually, so if I go on proving, then actually it is not this course, right? So that's why I'm little going. Last class I went fast, but it's wonderful actually. Yeah. So if I start proving, it is very wonderful. Yeah. Okay. But we need to go forward. Yeah. Good. Okay. So we have this X bar, right? So now what is the next goal? Is it done? Proof is completed?
Uniqueness.
Uniqueness we need to show. Correct. Okay. So how do you show uniqueness? Let us assume that X bar is another solution, right? That means X bar is also satisfying all the congruences. That means X bar is X dash is a congruent to AK. Okay, let us actually, you no need to worry about this same X bar. You can take another X bar. This is uniqueness is a completely different proof. Okay. So I'm also a little confusing you. Do not take this X bar. Okay. This is actual something, uniqueness, solution existence, that is done. Now suppose there are two solutions. X bar is congruent to AK mod NK for every K. X dash is congruent to AK mod NK for every K. Then what is my goal? I given the entire proof, sorry. But actually, what is the meaning? So it is satisfying all of the congruences. So I first take 1K between 1 and R, right? I took one particular K. Okay. So now NK divides X bar minus AK. So, and X bar is congruent to AK mod NK, and X dash is congruent to AK mod NK. From these two, by transitivity, you know that X bar is congruent to X dash mod NK. That means that NK divides X bar minus X dash, right? But I want to show that this is give the same remainder when I multiply by M. How do you prove that, right? So there I am using, yesterday you remember that A divides C and B divides C, A comma B GCD1, then AB divides C. I asked you to remember that result, right? So that we are using. So now I proved that NK divides this for every K. Now N1, N2 up to NR, they are relatively prime. Then their product also divides it. Okay, so that is the proof. So that means that they will give the same remainder. That means they are same up to modulo. Okay, anyone has any doubts? Okay, but how do you prove that? So let us try to prove that. A divides C, B divides C, okay, and A comma B GCD 1. And how do you prove that AB divides C? Yesterday I told, but how many of you done, I do not know. That's why today I'm asking, actually checking with you. That means that
Actually, the proof that we had done was different, but in many places, can't we use the fundamental theorem that we can write it as a prime factor, like write A, B, C
See,
as
this is
prime.
what I'm telling that see that we can utilize by fundamental theorem of arithmetic will tell you that surely existence is there, or I can write it. Yeah, so that you can utilize that way. What so Rohan is telling that A divides C, A comma B GCD1. That means that there are no primes common to them.
Yes.
Okay, that is what. So that way it is done. Yeah. So he given one proof. Very good. Okay. Now he given a very simple proof by using fundamental theorem of arithmetic. But the problem there is that you are using atom bomb.
Yes.
So, yeah. So
you're using something which means
very
you don't need to
less.
use that technique. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So but that proof is very simple and very good, and everyone has to know that this way you can prove it. Thanks, Rohan. That is a good thing. But it is always better that without using a fundamental theorem of arithmetic, how can I prove? Right? Basic things, basic definitions. So again, no need to hurry, panic. A divides C. That means C is equal to, right? So let us annotate again. So my C is equal to AK1. My here C is equal to BK2. Okay, what is given? Just I am writing. So A comma B GCD1. So there exists X comma Y, X and Y by Bezoar's identity. So 1 is equal to AX plus BY. What is that I want to show? This part. Okay, that means that what is that I want to show? C is equal to AB into some number. I have to get. How do you get it? So this is the final. So now how do you go? Any one of you can think and tell me? Somehow I have to get AB. C divides C. AB divides C. C is equal to AB into something from these three equations. Yes. From these three equations.
You can multiply that one equal to AX plus BY into C.
By C. Okay. That was Sachin told previously, right? So you are also using the same thing. Let us see. Okay. So C is equal to ACX plus BCY. Let us check what happens. Since I need C one side, so very logic to multiply C. Okay. Multiplied. But I want to get AB. But here I have AC. Here I have BC.
We can substitute C.
So actually, so I'm not used it till now this part. Okay. So there are a lot of things are. So sorry, I'm done some mistake, right? No. Yeah, correct. So I'm not used this till now. Yeah, that is the only thing I forgot. No. What is it I'm telling? Sorry.
We can substitute C by A 1 by B. Okay. Here by B into K2 and other by A into K.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm a little confused. So this is I want to show correct. So now this for this C I want B here. So for this C I'll take BK2. For this C I'll take AK1. Done. Okay. So very simple, right? Yeah. So my intention to say all these things is that do not you can prove it. You have that power with you. That is what I want to tell. Okay. Okay, now but with that result, now this can be extended to any numbers which are relatively prime. Okay, I proved that nk divides x bar minus x dash. So now it is only one congruence. This can't get from one congruence. Okay, now but n1 n2 and they are relatively prime, so that product also divides this. So we are done. Okay. So be careful. That is what Rohan told earlier. X naught is a solution modulo t. Then x naught plus mt is also solution modulo t, right? So that is what actually meaning. Okay. So to understand you, okay. So don't worry about that. So I'll tell you here with one example. So so what happens? What is the condition in the Chinese remainder theorem? So you want some break or is it okay to continue?
We can continue.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So see, we have in the hypothesis of Chinese remainder theorem, n1, n2, nr they are relatively prime. If they are not satisfied, then what is going to happen? Just I want to tell you with that one, and I'll stop this Chinese remainder theorem part. Okay. See, first here 52 and 72, they do not have any. Their GCD is not 1. They are not relatively prime. and here you do not get solution also. So how do you show that part? So that is also easy. So take the first two congruence. X is congruent to 25 mod 52. That means 52 divides x minus 29. So, but 52 is equal to 4 into 13, right? So that means 4 also divides. Okay, I'll write here so that it will be easy. What is that I'm talking? You will understand. Okay, what I'm saying that x is congruent to 29 mod 52. Okay, what is the meaning of this one? So 52 divides x minus 29. But that means that, but 4 divides 52. And if 52 divides x minus 29, that means that 4 divides x minus 29. What is the meaning of this? X is congruent to 29 modulo 4, right? But this is actually, but 29 is congruent to 1 modulo 4. So actually this equation now related to, so x is congruent to 1 mod 4 finally, right? Similarly 13 x. So this one relation, now I got two relations. If this is true, then this both and here, okay? So both has to satisfy. So one congruence I convert into two congruences and with and also, okay? And similarly, I have another equation, right? So now I have four congruences. It is easy to see that it is impossible to find solutions satisfying these things. So I'll not go into details, right? Yeah, so now, so you can check that easily. Now I'm going to another one. So here x is congruent to 1 mod 9 and x is congruent to 1 mod 6. Is it has a solution first? Can somebody give me one answer to this? Can you give me x? Huh? Yeah, please. Shruti, yeah, Pradeep, yeah.
1.
1 it satisfies, right? First of all, 1 satisfies. So, but is there any other solution other than 1?
55.
55 obviously satisfies because 55 is 54 plus 1. 9 into 6 is 54. They automatically satisfy. But now the goal is that is there any number below 54 it satisfies?
Nineteen.
19, yeah, thank you. See, 19 also satisfying, okay? So that means that Chinese remainder theorem is not true. Uniqueness is failing here. So that is I want to tell you. So if the hypothesis is not satisfied, but when they are not relatively prime, sometimes no solution, sometimes unique solution may fail, okay? So in fact, we have three solutions here. 1 modulo 54, 19 modulo 54, 37 modulo 54. These are 19 is not congruent to 1 modulo 54. These are incongruent solutions satisfying both. So with this, I hope you understand earlier what do you mean by incongruent also, right? Okay, good. So I hope you understand what the Chinese remainder theorem actually says. Okay. So how to solve the system? So now this has unique solution modulo 210. You can prove it. So how do you get it? The basic solution I gave here a table. So this is available to you. You can do it later, right? So 206 is the solution common to all of them. Okay, now I'll go to another concept. So Euler P function. Yeah, so it is what? Okay. So even then, so just give, I'll give 1 minute time. So take break, 1 minute time. Okay. So there are total 18 students are there, right? So who is missing today? From ICT? Somebody help me, who is missing? So I'll check. Yeah.
Vineet is not there.
Vineet is not there. Okay. Thank you. Okay. In the first class, is somebody missed? Do you have any idea? Vineet is there in the first class?
Yeah, sir, he was there.
Okay.
Sir, I was not there in the first class. Pratiksha.
Pratiksha. Thank you, Pratiksha. Okay. Okay, then. Yeah. So let us proceed. So I hope all of you know what is Euler-Phi function. Okay. So what is that we will do? We'll take all the numbers from 1 to n, which are relatively prime to n, and we take the cardinality of that set. That is called Euler-Phi function, right? Okay. So you know that. So when n equal to 1, phi of n equal to 1, phi of 1 is 1, 2 it is 1, 3 it is 2, right? For 10, can somebody help me that what are the numbers which are relatively prime to 10?
Sir.
Hmm.
So 3,
Okay.
7, 9,
Hmm.
and
1.
1.
Yeah. So first one we have to start with 1. Yeah. So for 10, the numbers which are relatively prime to, so relatively prime are, so for 10, oh, something happening. Yeah. So for 10, the numbers which are relatively prime to 10 are 1, 3, 7 and 9. So there are 4 numbers. So phi of 10 is equal to 4, right? Yeah. Okay. So you understand that. So somebody can help me now that from this, can you tell me some more numbers, some observations, whatever you feel, can you tell me?
So for any prime, we say that it is p minus 1.
Right, good, thank you. So for prime number, so phi of all the numbers up to p minus 1, all are relatively prime to p. So for prime number, you completely given the answer. So you directly given for all primes, infinite cases, infinite numbers, you given the answer, right? Okay, so let us write that. So phi of a prime number, p is a prime number, phi of p equal to p minus 1. Yeah. Any other observations?
For p raised to n,
Mm-hmm.
it is p raised to n minus p raised to n minus 1.
How do you prove it? Okay, we'll come to that. So to show that one, can you, Shruti, can you prove first for this one? What is phi of 2 power n?
Two raised to
Yeah, anyone, other person can help. So your formula is correct, okay? So now you apply that one, then tell me otherwise.
So for 2 raised to n also it comes out to be the same because I could just verify.
Okay. So
It will
now
be
you
2
have
to
a
the power
question
n minus 1.
yeah, for example, if it is true, if I apply, then I'll get 2 power n minus 1, right? Assume it is true. If you apply this formula, then I'll get this one, right? Yeah. So how many of you say that whether it is true or not, this formula now? Anyone now? Any one of you? See, that is the thing I want to tell you today. See, you are reading things, but you are not actually concentrating properly. Okay. See, last time I went very fast. Today I'm going slow. My point is that you need to think properly. Okay. So let us see. You will tell now the proof very easily, right? So let us see. Let us take 4, right? What are the numbers which are relatively prime to 4 among these?
1 and 3.
1 and 3, you know, right? Now let us take 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What are the numbers which are relatively prime to 8?
1, 3, 5, 7.
1, 3,
All
5,
these
7.
odd numbers.
Yeah, somebody is telling. Please go
Odd
ahead.
numbers, sir.
Odd numbers. Why odd numbers will be relatively prime to?
Because it will always be a multiple of 2. So
Yeah,
the
see,
odd numbers
so
will
2
be.
power n. So 2 power n. So let us look at 16. Now Shruti already told, if I go to up to 16, 16 is 2 power 4. So what are the primes numbers dividing 16? Only one prime is there. In 2 power n, only these numbers have only one prime factor, 2.
It's
Right?
exactly half.
So now, yeah, that is exactly Shruti. Yeah, correct. See, all odd numbers are relatively prime to 2 power n. So see the beauty that you found the answer for 2 power n without actually, this is recalling some result earlier you proved. But this is you are derived now. Now you will never forget. Phi of 2 power n equal to 2 power n minus 1. So these are all odd numbers from 1 to 16 are relatively prime to 16. So in general, 2 power n, all odd numbers. How many odd numbers are there? Exactly half of them are even and half of them are odd. So phi of 2 power n is 2 power n minus 1. We proved it. Right? Good. Now, but we want to prove this result now. So your result even work for every prime now. Is it okay, Shruti?
Yes.
Even here also it is true, right? Yeah. So you thought that it is only for odd primes, but it is even true for any prime. Yeah, right.
So one more observation is also there.
Yeah,
For
please.
example, phi of 10 is equal to phi of 2 into phi of 5.
Okay. Okay.
So the multiplicative nature of phi function.
Okay. What is that you are telling is that since you already done the course, you know that, but it is good. But I will not stop there. I will ask you one thing. So, okay. What is that he's telling is that, okay, let us go look into that part. So what is Nader is saying is that, is it okay to say Nader? You?
Oh, yeah.
Which one you like?
So anything, Vikram, call me Vikram also.
Vikram, right? Yeah, I know that Sachin is calling you Vikram last day. Yeah, so Vikram. So what is that Vikram is saying that 10, in order to find phi of 10, so phi of 10 is equal to phi of 2 into 5. Okay, he is telling that it is phi of 2 into phi of 5. What is that you are telling actually basically? Can you generalize it, Vikram?
So for any number, we can write it as write in the form of like p1 raised to a1, that prime factorized.
So basically, instead of that, you are telling that if I take product of two numbers a, b,
Yeah.
it is equal to
Phi of a times phi.
Any time or some condition.
GCD should be 1.
If a comma b GCD 1,
Relatively prime.
the relatively prime, then phi of ab equal to phi of a into phi of b, right? That is what actually you are telling. What are those functions called?
Multiplicative function.
Multiplicative function. Okay. So actually, basically, you are telling that phi is multiplicative. That we need to prove, but okay. Suppose that assume this result. It is true. Actually, we can prove it. So phi is multiplicative. That means that if the GCD is 1, then phi of a equal to phi of a into phi of b. Now you are using it. Once it is multiplicative, any number can be written as product of primes uniquely, p1 power a2 up to pk power ak. Then these are relatively prime. So, but what is advantage that if I know phi is multiplicative, then what is that I know? If the function is multiplicative in general, the function is f is multiplicative. So f is a map from natural numbers to some complex numbers. So I am already also giving that f is multiplicative. Then what is that I want to know? In order to know the function. Not clear? Okay, I will ask another way. So I'll help you. So T is a linear transformation from V to W, right? And f is some function from A to B. So what do you mean by function? When you know the function completely, you know its value at each and every point in the domain, right? To know in order to know the function, I need to know f value at each and every point in the domain. But I told you that it is a linear transformation and V and W are vector spaces. So suppose confined to finite dimensional. So when I know completely,
So it's a homomorphism or something.
So yes, we can connect with homomorphism.
No, that's okay. In order to know T, what is that?
It's action on basis.
It's action on the basis. If I know what is its images on the basis, it is sufficient. I can find for any other. I do not need that much information. I have to know each and every point in the domain, right? I no need to know that. It is sufficient to know the basis. It's action.
Here the basis is the primes.
Now here primes like braces, but that is not sufficient. Multiplicativity is there here. So somebody now help me that what is that I'm looking for. So if I know it is multiplicative, in order to know f, it is sufficient to know f on
the primes.
No, primes not sufficient. See,
relatively prime.
No. Relatively prime, anyhow, I will apply later. Yeah, please.
P raised to n.
Prime powers. I need to know at prime powers. So then I can find out. That is the beauty of multiplicative function. If you know that prime powers, then I know everywhere. That's why Shruti result is useful. Why actually Shruti told, actually people given that result. So generally first people prove that P of P power n equal to. But why people prove that result? That it is sufficient to know phi on the prime powers. Okay, then I know everywhere. Okay, so
yes.
Because n is equal to product of prime powers, so now phi of this I will apply. Now phi of p1 power a1, they are relatively prime, but I cannot do here. That I have to find out. P1 power a1 I have to find out.
Yes.
That I do not know. But once the function is, but if you include some more conditions here, then it is sufficient to know at primes only. Do you know something like that? What I want to say, the function has more properties. Not only multiplicated, something more, then it is sufficient to find only at primes. Do you know that type of thing? Okay, that is called completely multiplicative. Okay. So do you see somewhere completely multiplicative comes in the other places in the mathematics? It comes at several places. That is what you people are telling homomorphism. Very good, actually. I'm very happy when you told homomorphism part. I'm very happy. But you know general, before in the 10th, 11th, 10th class itself, you will get. In the matrices. In the matrices, I'm giving you that one also. So I want to find determinant of AB.
Determinant of A into determinant of B.
Right? Yeah. So it is equal determinant of A into determinant of B. I do not require any conditions on A and B, right? So this type of thing. So f of AB equal to f of A into f of B. Now there is no condition. I do not require GCD of AB equal to 1. Then those functions are called completely multiplicative. Okay. So those functions which are completely multiplicative, then it is sufficient to know only on primes. Okay, the building blocks. Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. So these are the things you need to know, not the theory, proof and all. Okay, good. Okay, fine. So now, so how you define GCD? So this is, sorry, Euler phi function, this is one way to define. Now I'm defining in another way. So phi of n is equal to, is it going to work? This is greatest integer function. Can I write like this? See, greatest integer function I am taking. Whenever GCD is not 1, then it is greater than 1. So 1 by that number, greatest integer becomes 0 here, right? So when it will contribute this, when it will contribute the sum?
If the GCD is 1.
GCD is 1. At that moment only I'll get 1. I'm adding only those ones, right? So that is exactly, see, beautiful that we are expressing in a different way by using just GCD. So see, one is that you want to write programs, Python program you want to write, then there are different ways to find the Euler phi function, right? This is one way to find out. In the analytic number theory, people use these techniques, okay? So this exactly that earlier whatever I wrote is this, okay? So yeah, as you already pointed out, when it is 2 power k, it is 2 power k minus 1. So that is what I wrote here. So now it can be extended to every prime power. That is what Shruti told, that I wrote here. Beauty of this one is that I can write p power k, this is equal to p power k into 1 by 1 minus p. So this advantage is that, so just I am writing 1 by 1 minus p power k is as it is, okay? Yeah, good. So how do you prove it? So somebody know the proof of this one?
I think the only things that would be divisible, that would divide p raised to k are the multiples of p,
okay.
and
yeah, right. What is Rohan is telling that instead of finding the numbers which are not relatively prime to p power k, find all the numbers which are finding the prime numbers which are relatively prime to p power k. Instead, find all the numbers which are not relatively prime to p power k. Okay. So that is the numbers 1 to p power k that are that have a non-trivial common factors of p power k. Non-trivial common factor means other than 1. So 1 into p, 2 into p, 3 into, so p power k minus 1 into p. These are the numbers which I have, which DCD is not 1. So I have, how many of them are there? Exactly p power k minus 1 are there, which are not relatively prime to p power k minus 1. So I have to subtract them. All the numbers 1 to p power k, I subtracted the numbers which are not relatively prime to p power k. So I subtracted. That is the answer, right? Then that Vikram told that phi is a multiplicative function. So I given the proof, but you can go through the proof later. Yeah, so beautiful. This can be done in different ways. I proved in one way. So as Vikram told, once we have it is relatively prime, then we can easily apply this, right? So I can write phi of n is equal to this way. I can apply phi on individually prime powers only. So it is sufficient to know prime powers when you know it is a multiplicative function. Other than that, so earlier you see that I wrote this p power k also equal to p power k into 1 minus 1 by p. That will be useful. Okay, the thing is that with that what happens? So I can write n into 1 minus 1 by p1, 1 minus p2 and so on. So what is advantage of writing that way? So I'll let you know. So see, all these things will helpful for us in future. Annotate, okay. So yeah, so what is going to happen is that now I no need to worry about what are the prime factors also. So phi of n is equal to, I simply write product p divides n. I look at that one, and here I write n, and here I write 1 minus 1 by p, right? Are you okay? Is it clear to you? Hello, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It is beauty. So I do not worry about what is the prime factorization. So simply I am looking at what are the primes dividing n. First I multiplied with n. Okay, that is already there. So only what are the prime dividing and then I just write 1 by 1 minus p. Beautiful, just ho gaya, right? So this is the way we will do it. Sorry, one more time. Oh, sorry. What is that I'm doing? Annotate. Clear all. Yeah. Close it and I'll go for yeah. So one particular case 666 is a somewhat not a good number for some people, right? So 666 is equal to, so this is the thing. So the reason for taking 666 is that so Euler phi number will come 216. It is equal to 6 power 3. So it is 6 into 6 into 6. Nothing actually. I liked this. Okay. So somebody can prove it that if phi of n is even integer.
From the formula.
How? From the formula?
So that if P is
yeah, okay.
That P will be odd, and so P raised to
yeah, okay.
P will be odd.
Yeah, good. So he's telling that by using formula we can prove it. But so what is that happening again, Rohan? You are using atom bomb.
Yes, yes.
See, the reason, okay, I also wrote that proof, but you are using atom bomb. Is there any other way to prove it? Okay, from the definition itself. Right? So today my goal is that actually not covering the content. Later I will go little fast after some time. So somebody can help me that how to prove here. So just I'll give some hint here. Yeah, first take some time first. Without using the formula and all, see, in order to use formula, first I had to show phi is multiplicative, right? Then I use the formula, then I had to prove it. Phi is multiplicative is not that straightforward.
Yes, yes.
But without that, am I able to prove it? Okay. So that is the thing you need to think of while doing the course. Somebody is proving it. Do not take them as it is. So try to ask yourself that is there any other way to prove it? Is there any simple way I can look into it? Okay.
Yes.
So I given the hint here. Can you see that? Instead of telling the answer, I given some hint here. Actually, general number theory class, I will give more time. I'll give a lot of examples, but this course is not for that. That's why I'm telling answers, revealing very fast. So somebody can tell me what is the answer to this? N comma k, k comma n GCD1, then n minus k comma k GCD how much? So, okay, I'll write here again 10 lelo. So what is the GCD of 1 comma 10? 1. Now what is 10 minus 1? 9. What is the GCD of 10 comma 9? 1. Next number 3. What is the GCD of 3 comma 10? 1. What is the GCD of 7 comma 10? 1. Right? So now can you somebody?
So 1.
Yes, please.
So GCD of n minus k comma k will be 1.
Yeah. So if k comma n GCD 1, k comma n GCD 1, right? Then k, so k, n minus k comma n GCD k also 1, right? So I wrote something wrong actually. I want to write n's here. Sorry, there is a galat hua tha. Sorry, please excuse me. Yeah, so that's what created a problem. Yeah, please excuse me. I will correct it. So what is that? I want to say that k comma n GCD1, then n minus k comma n also GCD1, right? So sorry, please excuse me. This is n, okay?
Sir, I like what I'm So what I want to say is that, so like in complex numbers, how we like they are always in pairs. So similarly, the divisor will also will be in pair. Like, so I don't know how to prove it, but they will be always in pairs. So
Right.
that
Yeah.
will be
That is what is happening here exactly. So when k is k comma n GCD 1, then n minus k comma n GCD is also 1. So so each one is giving 2 except for n equal to 2 case. N equal to 2, there is only one number na before that. So that's why, so I am excluding that n greater than or equal to 3, right? So we are going to get even number. Uh, so uh, so it is sufficient to know half of them, and remaining half will come from n minus k. Is it okay, all of you?
Yes, if you assume that is D, then D divides n minus k, and then D will divide k. So
Yeah. So see, that is, this part is easy to show, n minus k comma n GCD 1, right? Yeah, that you are proving, that is easy. See, so n minus k comma n GCD 1. So this you need to prove. So how, what is Rohan is telling that, suppose n minus k comma n, how do you prove this part? So he's giving a hint. So suppose start with D. D divides, D is a GCD. So then D divides n and D divides n minus k. So then D divide their combination. So D divides k. So that means D divides n and D divides k. So then D divide their GCD also. So D divides 1. But the GCD is always greater than or equal to 1. Now D divides 1. So D is less than or equal to 1. So D has to be 1 only. So that is the proof. When k comma n GCD 1, then n minus k comma n GCD is also 1. So they will come in pairs. So k and n minus k. So they are exactly half will be there, right? So we are done. Yeah. Okay. So there are different ways to attack the problem. So now Euler's theorem says that, so a power phi of m is congruent to 1 mod a. So now again the same thing. Euler, this is the beauty. So Fermat proved that result for primes only, right? But Euler, so there is almost 100 years difference at least. Okay. So no one tried actually. So if you look at number theory, Fermat is called father of number theory. So many problems who left, Fermat left. Okay, for example, Fermat numbers, right? So 2 power n plus 1. So he told blunder, right? Fermat told that all of them are primes. So but no one proved. So even for 5, 2 power 5 plus 1, after 100 years, Euler proved that that is not a Fermat number. That is not a prime number. Right, many results like that Euler proved. Okay, so Fermat's little theorem, that a power p minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod p. So no one tried to extend it to all the natural numbers. So for that one only, he introduced this function. So when m equal to prime number, this phi of p becomes p minus 1, right? And it is generalizing now. That is the beauty of Euler. Okay, so he generalized it to all the natural numbers. Okay, so why we are studying this for the number cryptography course? So later you will use this. Okay, I want to find a powers very easily, you can evaluate. Okay, once you know this result, I will use this to evaluate the a power something modulo n very easily. Polynomial time, I can repeated application of powers, I can find out. Okay, there are different ways you can utilize this. Okay, so any doubts? Okay, see, main part is that proof, again it is same to that Fermat's little theorem. Okay, so before going to proof, then I given one example here. GCD of 59 comma 100 is 1. So 59 power 40 is congruent to 1 mod 100. So you see the beauty, 59 power 40 will give remainder 1 if I divided by 100. That is what it is telling. Other way, it is telling that the last 2 digits is 0 1, right? Last 2 digits are 0 1. It is telling another way also. Right? Remainder is actually the last 2 digits, right? When you divide the number, there are different ways to see that. Okay, so proof is again in the same as Fermat's little theorem. That's why I given more time there. So you take a1, a2, a phi of m are the positive integers less than m and relatively prime to m. You know that phi of m numbers are there relatively prime to them, right? Okay, now you multiply again a1, a2 and so on. Again, ask the same question. None of them are relatively prime. Give the remainder, same remainder. Okay, and they will give the same reminders as t. Okay, all these things are same. Again, multiplying, all these are same. Okay, so I'm not going to that. So same type you will prove it. Okay, and this itself now again used to prove that in the this result can be also used to show that in the Chinese remainder theorem we are finding that x, right, that you can found now by using n1 power phi of n1. Okay, yeah, so this way also we can find out another solution. Okay, so that is the connection between these two. Okay, so just before going further, just with this I will stop actually. Today I thought that covering residue classes, quadratic residues also. Quadratic residues are used in the Rabin's primality testing. So later we will come across. Okay, but so just to give one notation and I will stop. Un is set of all numbers which are relatively prime to n. I am collecting only those numbers. Okay, what is the cardinality of Un?
Phi n.
Phi of n, right? Okay, so Un is set of all numbers 1 to n which are relatively prime to n. Okay, for example, U8 is 1, 3, 5, 7. We already computed all odd numbers, right? So why we are interested in these numbers? Actually, they form a group with respect to multiplication. Okay, so but before going to that, so we know that Zn, okay, of course not exactly these. Okay, please excuse me. Actually, these are equivalence classes. Rohan is correctly told. He is more precise than me. So actually, that is box of zero equivalence classes. Okay, with this understanding, I am going forward. So Zn star is Zn minus 0. So it does not form a group with respect to multiplication, right? A simple example, if I take Z6, so people, when you are going to multiplication, I will remove 0, but even then it does not form a group because 2 into 3 is 0, but that is not belong to the group, right? When I remove 0, right? And even not only that one, 2, 3, 4 does not have multiplicative inverses. So try to prove this particular thing. So, okay, this is very useful. Again and again, I'm telling Bezoart's identity part. Okay, so yesterday, today, I'm telling so many times. So you may be frustrated with me. So, but this is important. Okay, so so a number has ax is congruent to 1 mod n has a solution if and only if a comma n GCD is 1, right? So look at this part. So this is equal to 1, then a comma n GCD 1. This is 1 implies this is true. Okay. So but the 2, 3, 4 are not relatively prime to 6. So that does not have a solution. Okay, that does not have inverse. So that's why this UN is important for us. Okay. Yeah. So now, so is UN is cyclic? Next question is that. Okay. So whenever it is cyclic, so those are called primitive roots modulo n. Okay, but UN is cyclic only when n is of the form 2, 4, p power k and 2 into p power k. Okay, so what is that? I want to say that a number belongs to UN is a primitive root modulo n if whose order is equal to the order of the group. Order of the group is phi n. So I want to find out that this is a group with respect to multiplication and an element is said to be primitive root if whose order is equal to phi of n, order of the group. So is it, so that is equivalent to this group is cyclic and it has a generator, right? But thing is that Gauss proved that this is UN is cyclic only when n is equal to 2, 4 or p power k, where p is an odd prime, and 2 into p power k, right? So this is the thing. So this we will use. For example, this is used in discrete logarithmic problem. That is further used. So discrete logarithm problem is very hard to solve. Like See, there are two problems in while computing the asymmetric crypto systems. One is that natural numbers are very difficult to factor. Okay, that is used in RSA crypto system. So in 1976, Diffie and Hellman, they proved that they given the nice way to how to exchange keys. Okay, key exchange algorithm that is depends upon hard problem of discrete logarithmic problem. Okay, so discrete logarithmic problem says that. So okay, so discrete logarithm problem says that if G is a cyclic group, right, and G is a generator for it. Okay, now H is any element in the group G, then what happens? Since G is a generator, some G power X is equal to H, right? But now discrete logarithm problem is the logarithm of G H, this is equal to X, right? So this finding X is very complicated. So I give you G, I give you G power X completely after evaluating, that is H if I give. G and H I give, it is very difficult to find X. So that is called discrete logarithmic problem. So by using this, so Diffie-Hellman, first time they given the key exchange. Okay, so I'll tell you how that is. So that allowed us to give that Elgamal crypto system. So Elgamal crypto system is based on this, how we exchange the keys, asymmetric key. So there I will use the primitive roots and all. Okay, so we will take very large prime P and ZP is a cyclic group. Because of this result, there I will use. I'm just letting you know that where I will use. Okay, I'll stop because you have some other classes. Yeah, so any doubts you can let me know.
Sir,
yeah,
actually I want to ask first, sir, sir, we were using analogy for in the Chinese remainder theorem that x equals to a1 mod n1 so on till x equals to ar mod nr, like ni's are from v and like basis of v and ai's are the this thing basis of w. Sir, then what will be the role of x? Will it be the
no, X is actually, X is just, we are solving system of equations. X is a variable.
okay?
See, I'm solving system of equations, right? So I am taking, I want to solve all the solutions at a time. So X is congruent to A1 mod N1, X, again same X. Single X satisfying all of them. That is the Chinese remainder theorem.
Okay.
X is congruent to A1 mod N1, X is congruent to A2 mod N2, X is congruent to AR mod NR. So single X will be possible.
For
So
all
satisfying all of them. Okay, that is possible only if all of them are relatively prime. And you choose any A1, A2, AR. It's possible to solve that system. Very good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So secondly, sir, so you talked about the article which is connecting interpolation and CRT. Sir, can you like tell like from where we can get
okay. I'll try to share. Actually, right now I do not recall where I put in my system, but okay. If I there, I'll share in the Google Classroom directly to everyone. Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Thanks.
So any questions, please? Yeah. Good. Okay, then I stop.